So, hi, Mark Anderson here from NetSupport Group, and really excited to share with you on this episode of NetSupport Radio about how one of our products, NetSupport DNA, can help your digital strategy within your business or organization. Now, it's a fantastic product, and I know loads about it, but someone who knows even more about it than I do is our technical services manager, Mr. Andy Earp. So I'll bring Andy on here. Hi, Andy. How are you doing today? You all right?
Yeah, very well. Thank you. Yourself?
Yeah, I'm really, really good. Thank you. And really excited to hear from you about NetSupport DNA. It's such a fantastic product. And I do know lots about it, but as I often share with you, I'm very much the Padawan compared to your Jedi Master when it comes to knowledge of all things DNA. So we're exploring today about how DNA can help support your sort of corporate digital strategy. That's what we're going to be covering. And if you want to get in touch beyond today, please do reach out on social media. You can get me on ICT Evangelist, or alternatively, Andy and the rest of our team are available on NetSupport Group as well. But I'm going to jump into our first sort of question. And it's about application metering. And when I talk about application metering, Andy, the word meter and metering often sort of brings up visions of car parking and meters and fines and all this sort of stuff. But clearly, it's nothing to do with that. So for those who don't know, what is application metering, and how can it help support your corporate digital strategy, Andy?
Sure. Okay, so with application metering, your NetSupport DNA agents, they're going to be installed on your devices around your office, and they're going to monitor the application usage on those devices. They're then going to send that information up to the DNA server, and then your DNA console operators or technicians with access to those consoles will be able to review that information to see what applications are being used and where they're being used. And that information is going to tell you the application name. It's going to tell you the application start time and end time for each occurrence that it's been monitored. But more importantly, it's also going to tell you the active time. The active time is the time that application was in focus for. That information can then lead to decisions as well. So you could then look at this application metering information to find out, maybe it's a new product that's just been deployed. Is it being utilized as well as you were expecting? So you could then look at, okay, it's maybe not being used as much as we were hoping for. Let's look at doing some internal training on that application to make sure that it is being used for the purpose that it's been bought for. And you can see within DNA, you'll be able to see, which of your staff members around the office or at offices, which ones are maybe using it more than others, that you can then target those. So not only are you going to be able to track where it's being used based on the devices, you can also look at your users and see what applications they've been using and for how long they've been using them for. So it's really important. So that's really handy again for those kind of staff training purposes to make sure it's being utilized. But also if you've got a renewal sat on your desk that somebody's chasing you for to find out, well, do we need to renew this? You can look at the application meter information to make that decision as to, well, are we still using it? And start those conversations with those departments to find out, if they're saying, oh yeah, we definitely do need to renew this license, you could maybe say, well, hang on, if we look at the information in DNA, it's not been used in the last 6 months. Do we really need to renew this? So you can then start those conversations with your key departments to find out, whether you do need to renew those or maybe renew, fewer licenses and such. So yeah, really handy, the application metering to allow you to kind of track usage and make those decisions.
That's really, really useful. Thank you, Andy. When it comes to business, time is definitely money. And so it's really useful to have tools and services that can help us save money. And one of the ways we can do that is through tools that have automation built in. Now, I know there's a bunch of features in DNA that can be automated to improve efficiencies within the IT support services within the corporate setting. So my next question to you is how does automation in NetSupport DNA support your corporate digital strategy, and what sort of things can it do?
Yeah, so there's varying features in DNA that include automation. You've got, for example, our reporting tool, which is the query tool. You can generate reports based on machine usage, so you can look at where those logon sessions are occurring. You can look at application usage reports. You can look at hardware spec reports. And that's great. You can go in and you can manually run those, but you don't necessarily want to manually be running those, especially if it's a report that maybe you want on a routine basis. So you can basically set up what's called the schedule queries, and then you can predefine your query report, the fields you want to be displayed, the conditions you want to apply to that. And then once you're happy with that, you can then set a schedule for that to be scheduled at X date and time, or every week, and then that can be emailed to your chosen staff members, and they'll receive an email with a copy of that report attached. So maybe every Monday morning, a report lands telling you your application usage for a particular department, or telling you what were the top 10 applications used last week for the whole company, or what was your hardware overview currently for your machines, or which machines are being used and logged on the most. So you can create those type of reports. So that's one form of automation. So rather than having to always go into DNA and try and find that information, you can create those reports and just do it that way. You can also, there's an energy monitor feature of DNA. DNA will allow you to see machines being turned on within working hours, and reports on devices being left on outside your working hours. So you can configure those working hours in the system. And then as part of that, if you do notice that there are a high number of devices being left on out of hours, you can then implement your automated power plans. So you can pick your days of the week that you want DNA to turn on your machines at maybe 8 o'clock in the morning or 9 o'clock in the morning, ready for the staff to arrive. So again, you're saving time there. Staff members having to turn on a machine, wait for it to log on, and go through that way. You can have them on ready for them to just log on straight to when they arrive in the morning. And then at the end of the day, people just want to run out to their car and go home. They don't necessarily always remember to turn their devices off. So you can set these power off plans, again, picking the days of the week that you want that to run and the set time. So maybe it's, say, 6 o'clock each day. You can have that turn off the devices at that point. If the device is still in use, then there is a pop-up that will appear to the end user, so they can remove that restart, so they can be exempt from it. So they have the option there to turn off or not, so they can postpone that. You can also schedule holidays as well. Maybe it's a bank holiday weekend or such. You don't want DNA to be turning devices on during the bank holiday if they're not going to be in use. So you can set exemptions for certain holiday dates. And you can also set inactivity plans. So if devices, staff are going out at lunch, leaving the devices unattended, you can set an inactivity plan within DNA. So if that's gone on for, say, 15 minutes, then it can shut down the device, put it in standby mode, make sure it's logged off. You can choose the different states you want to pick from, and DNA will automate that. Another area of automation worth mentioning is software distribution. So in NetSupport DNA, the technician can push packages out to their machines, so they can pick their software installs, specify the commands, and then use that to push out programs to their agents. And you can do that on a manual basis, or you can automate that as well. So you've got a scheduling option within the software distribution to allow you to schedule those out of hours and schedule which machines they're going to go to and pick the exact time. So you've got automation there, which again is going to help save time.
Great stuff. Now, look, if somebody's watching this video thinking, well, this all sounds really interesting, I'm really liking it. Can we just be clear? NetSupport DNA isn't just about Windows devices, is it? We support lots and lots of other platforms and other types of devices as well, don't we? We haven't got a specific question for this, but I thought it was important to just sort of make sure that's really, really clear. Can you just share, what sorts of devices we do actually support within DNA?
So there are different agent components for DNA available. You've got a basically a extension for Chrome. You've got a agent for Android. So there are different platforms. You've also got the SNMP detection. So more so in the corporate sector, we find that the SNMP detection is used heavily, where they're going to be specifying IP ranges, and DNA will detect managed network switches, so SNMP enabled switches, and can alert on information from those, and also your printers as well. And not only can it alert on that information, it's going to basically detect those devices on the network. So that's really handy for your technicians. So if your toner level is running low on a particular printer, then you can set that up to send alert notifications for that. If your bandwidth utilization is high on one of those network switches, again, you can receive notifications on that. So it can scan those IP ranges to also provide you a kind of idea on what devices you've got on the network that can be managed. You've also then got device discovery, so you can turn on your IP scan to locate new machines that maybe you weren't aware of that haven't got a DNA agent installed. So if you go to our website, NetSupportDNA.com, you will find on there information as to the different agents for the different platforms that we've got available.
Brilliant stuff, Andy. Thank you. And I'll just pop the link up again just across the bottom here. Look, so yeah, you can get a free trial on NetSupport DNA, and just go to netsupportdna.com/corporate. You'll find all the information Andy was talking about there. But I thought it's really important, because when you're thinking about your corporate digital strategy, it's not just the devices people are sat down and working at. Sometimes it's point of sale terminals, sometimes it's display units, sometimes it's lots of other things that form part of your whole IT asset management piece. So brilliant, thank you very much for that. And that links really nicely into my next question for you, actually, Andy, which is around the sort of software and hardware inventory features. How does the hardware and software inventory in NetSupport DNA support your corporate digital strategy, Andy?
So again, really important. So if you want to identify, in terms of hardware, first of all, if we go into that, if you want to identify your low spec machines, maybe you're planning a Windows 11 rollout, you want to be aware of which devices are going to support that, which ones aren't going to support that, then you can utilize the hardware inventory to see that information. So you could create a dynamic group or report on machines that maybe don't meet the spec requirement. You could also create reports based on disk space usage. There's lots of different things you can look at from the hardware inventory. Moving on to devices being used as well. Again, you can look at the logon sessions to your devices. Again, that's kind of falls into with the hardware and component there. Now, the way that works is the DNA agent is sat on those machines. It's constantly monitoring the hardware on those devices, and if it detects changes, and at that point is when it's going to send that information up to the DNA server. So it's not sending full hardware inventory information each scan configured interval. It's going to only send any change information up to the server, and that keeps the hardware inventory view of your devices up to date. So if you're looking at the hardware inventory overview, that's going to be a recent hardware inventory overview of that particular device. You can then also look back on the history though. So if you think that maybe some of the hardware of that device has changed, maybe it's been upgraded, maybe the hardware's been removed, that information will be stored in the history component of DNA. So you can skip out of the hardware inventory and go to the history component to get an overview and look back at certain dates as to when changes have occurred. And with the hardware inventory, you can also attach leasing and contract information. So again, if you want to collate all that information all in one place, then you can do so in the hardware inventory. So you can create your maintenance contract, you can attach lots of information to that, external documents and bits and pieces, and then you can link that to either individual machines or to departments of machines. So you've got the option of doing that for leasing and contracts. Again, just allows you to see that all in one area rather than trying to hunt around for emails and bits and pieces that you might have received when you bought the devices. In terms of software, again, The DNA agent on those devices is going to be monitoring the installed programs and applications, and it's going to be sending that information up to the DNA server for you to then report on. So it's going to show you a list of the installed programs and applications on those machines. For applications, you can also configure custom scans, so you can scan for bespoke applications. So a lot of corporates will have bespoke applications that maybe have been built in-house, might not be using a standard type installer, but there's a way of detecting that, looking at certain executables and certain files in certain places, so you can include those areas in the scan to ensure that those bespoke applications for your office are being detected. So that is really handy. It's not just an out-of-the-box scan that it's performing there. Now those applications can be categorized. So again, there can be quite a lot of information that can be returned from that list, especially if you've got a large deployment of DNA. And so you can add those into categories, and then you can filter the views based on categories as well to get to just the information that you want to see there. You can then assign licenses to particular programs. So DNA is going to count and tell you how many programs or how many copies of a particular program have been installed across your devices. And then you can tell DNA how many licenses you actually have. And it could be maybe you've only got 5 licenses for a particular program, but maybe you've got 7 installs. And that then ties into the application metering, where you can then start looking at, okay, well, I have gone over, but am I using all of those? Do I have to run out and go buy these additional licenses? Or can I save some money here and find out if it's not being used somewhere? So you can look at your application metering, maybe find out, well, actually on 3 of the machines it's not used. So actually there's 1 license that I don't actually need. So you can start looking at that information to help you make decisions and save some money as well, hopefully.
No, absolutely. And again, what I love about what you're sharing with me here, Andy, is the fact that it's just so malleable. I mean, there's loads of great out-of-the-box features, but as you were mentioning with custom in-house executive boards and the rest of it, you can really tailor DNA to fit your particular corporate setting, can't you? Which is just lovely to have you sort of outline and highlight those great sort of features where we can make DNA really bespoke for your particular corporate context. Great, thank you very much indeed. Now, look, sometimes you don't know what you don't know, but again, there's some great features in DNA that can tell you automatically through the alerting about what's happening within your sort of IT real estate, regardless of the geography, within your whole organisation. Could you share a moment now, sort of the ways in which that DNA can actually, through the alerting features, how NetSupport DNA can support the corporate digital strategy in that regard, please?
Sure. Yeah. So there is this alerting component in NetSupport DNA, and you can configure triggers within that alerting component. So you've got PC alerts. That's designed for triggers such as whether a particular process is used on a machine, if a particular event ID has been triggered on a machine, if it's running low on disk space on a particular device, and you can configure those triggers and then basically link those to your machines, and then you can specify to receive whether you get that alert as a pop-up that appears in the DNA console that you might have open. If you've not always got the DNA console open, though, you can also choose to send a email notification. So you can decide on your types of alerts and what information you want to be captured, your trigger sensitivity and bits and pieces, and then you can receive that information. So you're being notified of items of interest, if you like, that maybe need investigation to help you save time, rather than have to go away and find that information. Again, that can be for the DNA system and console alerts. That can be information such as hardware changes that are going on that maybe shouldn't be going on machines. So that can notify you, if somebody is changing some hardware that they shouldn't be changing, or if somebody's installing a program that you wouldn't expect to be installed, then again you can receive alert notifications for those, and that can be sent to the IT team, and then they're notified. So rather than then maybe finding out a week later when they're looking through the history or looking through parts and DNA and maybe stumbling across certain things, it's just a way of allowing that to be presented to them so that they can then jump straight on it. So yeah, really handy feature, the alerting component.
There's so much that DNA can do. I'm mindful of time. I've got a few more questions for you before we do sort of wrap things up. The next question I wanted to ask you around how DNA can support a corporate digital strategy is about how it can reduce overheads. Because obviously we talked about time is money, and we've already sort of outlined a few ways in which DNA can actually sort of speed up processes and reduce some time and what have you. But have you got any more examples of how DNA can help reduce overheads, please?
Yeah, certainly. So, we've mentioned items for application metering, how you can look at what applications are being used and use that for decisions as to whether you're going to renew particular programs. We've looked at hardware inventory, and we've kind of discussed about, how you can look at the log-on sessions and which machines are maybe being used more than others, and you can then look at that information and find out, are machines not being used because they're not a good spec, in which case maybe they could be utilized elsewhere in the company that maybe doesn't require a high spec machine, or maybe they do just need an upgrade. So there are information there you can look at, that will help you save costs in terms of the hardware and where that's being utilized. And for that, your energy usage and applying those power plans is going to help you save costs. What certain or some customers I've worked with in the past, what they've chosen to do with DNA is when they first implemented DNA on their network, they've then monitored the energy reports for the first week or two, and then they've implemented the power plans so that they can, turn around and show, the bosses of the companies and bits, DNA is already saving us this much money. So, it's really nice to be able to look at that and see that information coming through. There's also print usage as well. So DNA will report on printer usage from your agents. So it will tell you which printers are being used by those agent devices, and you can associate costs with those. Again, that helps you make decisions as to, are the right printers being used? Are they using the most expensive printer that costs the most to replace the toner on and other bits and pieces, where maybe for what they're printing from that department, they could be using a cheaper printer, or are they always printing in color and they should be printing it all in black and white. So there are choices and things that you can do there. But there's then the remote tools. So you compare NetSupport DNA with NetSupport Manager or other corporate remote control solution, and you can use that to then provide remote support tools. So they can right click a machine in the DNA console, and they can then jump straight into a remote connection to support them. So again, rather than having to send out technicians from the office to, maybe if your office is split across a large site, IT's admins away from their desk is costing you a lot of time and money for them doing maybe a simple job, but having to travel quite a while to get there, and not be available for other things. Then, providing them the tool to provide remote support and the bits that go around that, can help you save time and money as well. So yeah, there's a lot in DNA that allows you to help you save on costs.
And you can see a lot of this information as well, like your power management and the cost savings and your print and that. You see it on the dashboard, don't you, as well? So it's like right in your face. You can really see clearly how all these things are coming in and taking place and the impacts it's having, can't it? And that's just absolutely fantastic, don't you think?
Yeah, definitely. I'd say you've got, exactly as you say, you've got your dashboard view there where you can go straight in and see that efficiency dashboard, and then they're clickable links, so you can click on the different buttons to tell you, underused machines. It can tell you the low spec devices, and you can click straight on that and be sent to that information from the console. So it's all nicely collated in that one view.
Great stuff. Well, look, we've covered an awful lot inside our short sort of conversation here today, Andy, but really enjoyed learning about all these features that can support your corporate digital strategy and supporting IT asset management within your corporate space. If you'd like to learn more about NetSupport DNA, if you think that sounds like something that's of interest to you, you can get in touch by visiting our website, netsupportdna.com/corporate. And again, social media, our main Twitter account and other social media accounts are all based around NetSupport Group. So you can reach out to us that way. If you wanted to get in touch with me directly, you can see my handle there, ICT Evangelist. I'm always happy to talk technology and and the ways in which we can use it to increase efficiencies and reduce overheads and all these different things. So please do, if you want to, get in touch. And if, like I say, NetSupport DNA sounds like something which would be of interest and use to you, then please do get in touch and visit netsupportdna.com/corporate. Thanks for joining us. Cheers.